And with that, we welcome you to this special edition of In the Circle Live After Dark. I'm Eric Lopez, back from Gainesville, Florida, where I covered one of the 5 Game 3s today, which up until Stanford and LSU, every game came down to the go-ahead hitter at the plate with the game on the line in the last out. That was not the case in Stanford LSU. Victor Anderson, who's been home watching all this chaos, is with me. As you can tell, I got a nice tan. Coming up on this In the Circle Live show, we're going to be talking about the World Series matchup. We have the field of 8. I will tell you why. If you're an Oklahoma Sooner fan, it's time to celebrate.
What? Already?
I mean, that parade is just around the corner. We'll get into that. Some of the sights and sounds and overall thoughts of this Super Regional. I have some surprise guests coming up as this show goes on. It's World Series week. In the Circle SB is, of course, where you can follow us. Of course, check out our podcast, subscribe. You have made us very happy. What are we? Top 10, top 11 in the country?
We are top 10 in good pods for the month of May. We are humbled by your listening to our podcast. So we're thankful for that, for everything that's going on. Eric, should we bring our guest in now, sir? Since we're already ready to rock and roll.
We've had a great team. Let me just say the great team here. We had Rand Podke's in Knoxville through that weather delay and all that. So you can check out D1 softball for the coverage there from Alabama's stunning Super Regional win over Tennessee. Jenna Becerra's literally in Palo Alto. Stanford wins the Super Regionals there. She's covering that Super Regional out there in Palo Alto. And, of course, I was in Gainesville. And joining us now, she was in Los Angeles for the Super Regional. She will be wearing the Pac-12 honors for at least another couple months. Shelly Carlin.
Pack the pack. Go Card.
That's where I wanted to start. I wanted to start with Stanford. An emphatic win for them. Run ruling LSU. They win the last 2 games. Najee Kennedy shows why she's the National Player of the Year. Case closed. Was unbelievable the last 2 games. And the Pac, in their final year, as we know it, will get 2 teams in, and 2 teams that could make a lot of noise at Oklahoma City. But let's start with Stanford. Your thoughts here with just seeing Stanford offense explode, which we haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, you're never going to count them out because of Nija. But what we saw tonight is what Stanford does too infrequently, but they're streaky. They'll single you to death, and then that just generates momentum, and then you see they hit the bomb. So River Mailer is always the one that starts it. She's always kind of in the mix of everything. And they're just a momentum team offensively. And it takes them a while to get going. But thank goodness for the Pac that they did it tonight. But if they keep that up, they could, because there's not a lot of teams that are going to put up a lot of runs against Nija.
Well, that's the frightening thing about it. You don't need a ton of offense with her. But if that could come to life, back-to-back years for Jessica Allister to Stanford in the World Series. What does that mean for her? This was not easy. UCLA swept them and took them to them in Palo Alto. There was, they got eliminated in the Pac-12 tournament. They got pushed to a Game 7 by Cal State Fullerton. What does this mean for Stanford to get back when it was not all easy there? It looked for a while, it was a little wobbly.
It wasn't, and they looked they were struggling toward the end of the year. They dropped their last game of the regular season. They lost their 1 game in the Pac-12 tournament. They struggled a little in regionals, if you remember. Cal State Fullerton, of all people, took it to them. So it's really good to see them turn it around. They're young. They only have 4 seniors. So what I'm looking for them is, how do they do on that big stage without the core senior group that they might have had last year? Alana Votter and a few others. So I think it's huge for them to get this momentum because they're young, they go off confidence, and this is huge for them. Absolutely huge.
Now they're going to play Texas. Hello. We've seen that matchup before a couple times. We saw them in Clearwater, in fact. We saw them in Austin. So this is a third drop. By the way, I thought the number 1 seed was supposed to get a reward. Texas is now going to play. We'll get to Texas and A&M later. But Texas is going to have to play Stanford on their side of the draw. And then also in that draw, you got Oklahoma State and Florida. Hello.
And Texas, you know what? Texas is not playing that great right now. So A&M pushed them. So Yeah, I would not want to be Texas right now, given the momentum that Stanford has, giving that, that Nija's going to come and face them again. But that said, Nija is hittable. She is human. And, LSU proved that the first night. So it's going to be exciting to see that matchup. But as I said, if the Stanford defense and the young folks don't get nervous on the big stage, they play clean defense, Nija throws her game, it's only going to take one or two runs. And I think the Texas-Stanford matchup is going to be one of the most exciting in that first day.
Victor, let's bring you in here.
Yes.
I guess to me, LSU, we've known LSU pretty well. Super talented team. We said this on the podcast. I hated this matchup. I like both teams a lot.
Yes.
If we could get both of them in the World Series, I'd be signed off on that. There's definitely a couple of people I'd like to pick out right now. But their offense, they exploded on Friday against Kennedy, but couldn't score again on Saturday and Sunday, Victor, and that was unfortunately the story for the Tigers.
The super regional, Eric, I felt, Shelly, it was a microcosm of LSU's season. The first half of the year, their offense was up there with some of the best in college softball, 1 through 9. Their bench was deep and talented, but when they ran into any solid pitching, they got shut down and were shut out the last 2 nights. And that was the thing that was concerning to me, the fact that they had some chances, they couldn't get anything across, and then Stanford exploded in the last 2 innings to run rule their way to Oklahoma City. So I'm stunned at just the 180 of how this super started, with LSU run ruling the Cardinal on Friday, and then they get run ruled Sunday night to see their season come to an end. And now you lose a big senior class, and if you're head coach Beth Torina, you're going to do a lot of hunting in that transfer portal to try and re-solidify your roster for 2025 and what's going to be an even deeper SEC with both Oklahoma and Texas joining that league.
The Sen, shallow, they had a chance in the 5th inning to try to score on Stanford. I thought it was a fascinating game for the first 4 or 5 innings in that I think it got to the point. Tell me if you disagree with me, Shelly. I thought both coaches showed they were desperate to get a run.
They were
because
desperate.
they were like overly aggressive, sending runners, probably bad sends. Jessica sending one out there, and then Beth on the shallow fly ball sending the runner thrown out, changed the momentum of the game. But I defended in that clearly both coaches were desperate for a premium of a run, knowing who the starters were in Berzon and Kennedy. And it was fascinating to see that as both teams were trying to figure out how to scratch out a run up until the 6th inning.
Yeah, it's I was texting with Justin during that phase because at UCLA is known for sending anybody from first base on a single. We'll send anybody anytime. And I'm joking that maybe Kirk Walker was consulting with the third base coaches on this because they were if the ball touched the green, they were sending them. And, it says, yes, you're desperate, but also says something about your confidence in the hitters behind and not in a good way. And, I think that was very, very big on both sides. What's happened this year, outfielders are making the plays. Catchers are making the plays. They've figured out the obstruction thing. They're making the plays. We saw some great plays by catchers, and as a former catcher myself, I'm loving that. But the throws were on the money. The catchers did a great job. But I'm more concerned about what that says about the coach's confidence in the offense behind them.
Yeah, I thought the umpires, by the way, handled themselves very well. Constant, they were getting constant questioning there at home plate, and I thought it was.
Well, and the call, the runner between first and second, what people don't realize is, yes, she was hit, but she was behind the base run. The ball, she was hit behind the first baseman. So if the ball hits you after the ball is passed and a fielder, it's not an out. So I think a lot of people were confused about that.
Touche, which I was as well until I saw the replay. But I understand Beth's frustration there. I think at that point you kind of saw the thing slipping away a little bit. But that's what Najee Kennedy does to people. They drive you nuts because if 1 or 2 runs against any other pitcher, you're not stressing that. But against her, it seems like it's 8 runs.
Yeah. And then that Stanford feeds on that. I mean, their offense feeds on her. I mean, it all starts in the circle, which is a heck of a lot of pressure to put on a sophomore, but it is what it is. And let's face it, we're going to see old school softball here. They're going to have to ride her the entire time, to be honest. They're going to have to ride her. They're going to have to do a Taryn Moat, Kira Garrell, back in the old days, one arm. That's what they're going to have to do.
I missed those days. I'm not going to lie. I don't, staff's day. All right, let me bring this up. I'm going to cause a little stir here, but you gave me a good tweet. Pac-12, 2-0 against SEC head-to-head here in the Supers. Am I correct on that? 4-1?
Mm-hmm.
And you gave an interesting stat. You look at the World Series field, 3 teams from the Big 12 made it. 2 from the Pac-12, Stanford and UCLA. We have Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas from the Big 12. 2 SEC teams, Alabama and Florida, and then Duke. We'll get to them first. The one ACC team, first ACC team other than Florida State. So they finally broke through on that. But Pac-12, I think this is a storyline. I'm not sure if television's going to cover this or not. We all know what the story is off the field with the Pac-12 in their last year, but this is the league that has, in a lot of ways, the identity of the league was softball. Dominate the league. How do you feel about Stanford and UCLA? We'll get to the UCLA kind of rolling over Georgia. But how do you percentage their chances of getting to the champ series, both for now anyway, are in different brackets? But I think UCLA has a favorable bracket there, as we'll get to. Their matchup going to play Alabama by noon. I think it's noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central for the Bruin bubble.
Yeah, they get the first game. I think, and I was at Easton today. I was spent some time with Kelly Inouye Perez and some of the players. I think when you ask them about the Pac and what it means to be the last representative, it's not on their minds. They feel sad, that it's the last. They feel honored to represent the Pac. And, as a Bruin alum, it's a little bit of poetic justice, right? We're kind of the Pac, us in Arizona, and it's nice that we're there at the end. And Stanford, in my opinion, represents the latest kind of iteration. But, it's the 2 best teams in the Pac. They both made it. As it should be. I think, ironically, I don't think I would have said this in February, but if you look at pitching staffs, UCLA, of all the 8 teams, is one of the few that doesn't rely on an ace. They really don't. I mean, now that Tennessee's not in the mix anymore, they really don't have an ace. They are equal. That's going to benefit them with different looks at different people. Stanford, on the other hand, Stanford's going to go as Kennedy goes. Because she can keep them into ball games. If she can keep them in 13, 14 innings and they can push a run across, I like their chances. It would be kind of cool to have an all-Pac championship series, but if that happens, then I'll be happy and I'll be happy.
I was going to say, who's going to separate the 2 of you there at the World Championship Series? We get Justin to be the referee there. That happens. Let's talk about your Bruins a little bit. You were there in Los Angeles. They steamrolled Georgia. Like, that was a one-sided super. Dominated Georgia. UCLA's pitching shut down that offense. Some would say your team's clicking. The UCLA's clicking right now on all cylinders. What do you give them as a chance? Because this didn't start well in February. We discussed that at length. But I think this is Kelly Inouye Perez's best job that she's done since she's been there at UCLA. I think at times some people have said, well, she gets all these great players, and but is she, I think she's proven what a Hall of Fame type coach she is, and her staff with Lisa Fernandez. They made some tweaks. I remember talking earlier in the year about she embraced the adversity. You know her as well as anybody. I think this is the best job she's ever done. Your thoughts on that? Because I don't think you saw this coming in February. If I would have told you, hey, UCLA's in the World Series and they're going to be one of the favorites.
Yeah, I didn't believe until probably the Stanford sweep. But yes, it is Kelly's best, and I talked to her today about it, and it's actually one of her most rewarding. That's what she basically told us that today, because of how, and she even made it very clear. It doesn't even matter what the outcome is. It's just rewarding to see what this group of girls has done and how they believed in themselves and how they've turned it around and how they've how they've overcome adversity. So yeah, I mean, it is a little bit of a surprise. Georgia, I mean, their top 5 hitters going in, they had more home runs, just those top 5, than UCLA as a team had the entire year. The UCLA pitchers held them to, they were 6 for 26, so a 230 batting average. Those top 5 did not have an extra base hit. The whole Georgia team did not have an extra base hit in 2 games. And you guys know what Easton Stadium is. It's a cozy little thing. 190 down the lines. We were all expecting balls to fly out. Not an extra base hit. 1 run over 2 games. And they did it very differently. Tinsley is very different than Terry. Terry is a high velocity, dominant rise ball. She throws to all parts, all quadrants of the zone. And she didn't look like a freshman at all. And then Saturday or Friday, I guess it was, Tinsley, just awesome changeup, great command of her pitches. Interestingly, too, because she was playing against a lot of the kids that she played with in travel ball, because Tinsley is the first recruit to UCLA from the state of Georgia. She had played with all those players before. And so we asked her about it after the game. And, she was glad to see her friends and everything, but you could tell she was pretty happy about setting them down. Again, just phenomenal effort on the pitching staff, which really made the difference. And then the offense did what the UCLA offense does. I mean, one day it was Maya Brady with 2 home runs. The next day it's Charlize Palacios with 2 home runs. You throw a Jadalyn Alchin 3-for-3 game in there, and they're just balanced up and down the lineup, which is scary. So this combination of a pitching staff, young as they are, plus a powerful offense, I think could give people trouble. That said, Alabama is scary. And I know we'll get to that, but they are on momentum. They believe like nobody else, and they got one of the best pitchers in the country.
I think UCLA's embraced the underdog role this year, right? Because they've never the underdog. There's always the high expectations, national championship. In a way, with the way things started, it almost like people are like, all right, they're not done. I think they kind of thrived on it. Did that help in a way? It sounds weird to say UCLA an underdog, but that's what they are. This is like an underdog UCLA team, considering what injuries and what they had to start the year.
It's funny because they don't really pay a lot of attention to what others say about them. But I talked to Lisa Fernandez after the game on Friday, and she just gave me a little smile. She's like, I wonder what they're saying now, kind of smile. She didn't say those exact words, but there's a little bit of a, satisfaction in so many people that counted them out, and now here they are. I think they're ready to make a run because they're so unconcerned about the outcomes. They're unconcerned about anything other than playing for each other. You got 4 key seniors: Palacios, Meoño, Brady, and Alchin, who all have been playing together since they were 12 years old in travel ball. And every time you talk to them, it is about, I want to end my career with my best friends, and it's so cool that we get to do this. So they're playing for something completely different. None of them's talking about championships. None of them's talking about winning anything. They're just talking about having a great time and going out on top with their best friends.
Well, Victor, and this is what's interesting, the storyline in Oklahoma City. Tinsley, Terry, you talk about the young, not having that experience in the big stage in Oklahoma City. Florida, with Keegan Rothrock carrying the load. Freshman, young staff, not as deep, inexperienced in the World Series. Duke, first time ever at the World Series, inexperienced there. Even Alabama with Beaver, never been to this stage. It is interesting to see how these teams handle all that versus teams like Oklahoma and Oklahoma State that have been there, done that. Even Texas to some extent. Tegan Cavan has not pitched in the World Series as a freshman. It is interesting, though, young pitchers helping teams get to Oklahoma City. I think, Victor, is one of the narratives that we've seen in this postseason.
And that's why it's always important, and Shelly, this being in Oklahoma City as many times as you have, winning that first game on Thursday is so important to get you that confidence, to know that you can win and thrive in those environments and set yourself up for success. However, if you lose that first game, you're climbing uphill each game to keep your season alive. That's why those first games on Thursday are going to be vital, especially that opening game of the tournament with UCLA taking on Alabama. It's likely going to be Tinsley versus Beaver after the performance Beaver had in Knoxville this past weekend in the Supers. How do those teams come out to those fast starts? That's always going to be interesting. Those 9 a.m. Pacific games, which the Pac-12 always seems to be playing in. I don't know why.
What's up with that? Maybe they're getting used to it. Hey, this is a warm-up for you for the Big Ten because they love
That's all right. So they actually, UCLA is leaving tomorrow. So they're going to be in OKC on Monday. So they are getting there plenty of time. And they talked about the fact they were glad to have the day early start. They were glad to win it in 2. They had a day off on Saturday. They had practice today. They're leaving tomorrow. So they're going to get acclimated because that 11 a.m. local time, sun bearing down on you game it can be brutal. The Bruins lost to Texas, if you remember, a couple of years ago in that opening round game, and put them in a loser's bracket that it's just really, really hard to come out of. So I think they are going to. They have young pitchers. They have the Megan Grant, Jordan Woolers who've never been there, but they also have this core group: Meoño, Palacios, Brady, Alchin. All have been there with different teams, but they've all been there. So I think the senior leadership on this team off the field forget what they do on the field. It's fabulous, but off the field and how they're bringing these young ones along is just really, really interesting. But I think that it's going to be a battle. I think it's going to be an old-fashioned pitcher's duel that first game out, and I can't wait to get there.
I'm excited too. You got Najee Kennedy, who's probably going to win National Player of the Year. You got Reese Atwood. You got Lexi Kilford. Those are top 3 finalists for USA Softball Player of the Year. If we had our, the pitcher and Player of the Year, you probably have Atwood and then Kennedy, et cetera. You got Maya Brady, though, who I think it's now become underappreciated to some extent, which is kind of crazy. You're the best person to ask this question. Where does she rank in Bruin lore? Because having watched her, and she just is so awesome and fun to watch. Like, I expect her to be, quite frankly, to be part of the U.S. Olympic team in 28. I'd be disappointed if she wasn't. But to me, outside of maybe Rachel Garcia, she might be my favorite Bruin that I've watched. But you know as well as that program as well as anybody. Describe Maya Brady's impact on this program.
Well, on the field, the numbers are the numbers. She is number 2 in home runs behind, of course, Stacey Newman. She's in top 10 in, I think, hits, RBIs, a bazillion different categories. But the Maya Brady impact is the human being that she is. And you just see it in everybody who ever comes in contact with her. She is so about her teammates and her friends and making a positive experience. And I asked her today about stepping up as being the leader on this team this year, because Maya's always been the, kind of the little sister, go out and just swing it and just hit, right? And just play. And this year she's had to step into that leadership role. And I asked her if it was uncomfortable for her. And she said, yes, it was, because I love my teammates so much that when I have to be tough and say the uncomfortable things, it was hard. So to answer your question, she's going to go down as one of the best on both sides, both on the field and in the clubhouse, as one of the best that's ever played. She's certainly one of the best all around that I've been around the program, well, since I played the last 40 years, but particularly the last 20. Somebody who does it both ways, as a leader, respected, loved by her teammates, and the kid can play. She made some defensive plays against Georgia that were just crazy good, which that's been the one soft spot in her game this year. But she's clicking on all cylinders. And
she got better. She got better because she didn't correct me if I'm wrong. They moved her to shortstop.
No, she was a shortstop in high school.
Right.
When she came into UCLA, Bree Perez is a shortstop. So right. Maya moved to the outfield for 2 years and then moved back to shortstop and is consciously at shortstop, particularly because of the young pitchers. Kelly Ayes said, I wanted Maya at short to anchor, to be behind in the ear of those young pitchers, and Palacios behind the plate. I really think the success of those pitchers is due to the senior leadership they have around them.
Let's get some comments here. We're going to take your questions and comments here throughout the night here as we're on the In the Circle live show. Nolan chiming in. I think UCLA is one of the hottest teams right now. They can go head-to-head versus anyone. All right, let me ask you. Let's go through that draw a little bit. You got UCLA, Alabama, early draw there, and Oklahoma, Duke. How do you feel about those 4 teams paired together, at least for the first couple of games?
So I like UCLA, Alabama, only because I think the UCLA offense has the edge. I think it's going to be a pitcher's duel. Beaver is legit, and so I think UCLA pairs up pretty well. Oklahoma, Oklahoma is Oklahoma, and while their pitching is not what it has been in the past, they can still hit the heck out of the ball, and they're effectively in Oklahoma territory. So I think that's the toughest matchup. UCLA has not played Duke this year. We haven't played Duke since Supers a couple years ago. They scare me in terms of their offense, but yeah, I like the Bruins' chances. The only unknown is their freshman and sophomore pitcher. What's going to happen when they step on the big stage? They haven't been pitching like freshmen. They've been pitching really well. The Bruins have big wins over a lot of teams, but I like their chances. I think if we saw a UCLA Oklahoma game in the second round, that would be must-see TV.
Not going to lie, that's kind of what I want to see. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't looked at the television schedule, but, that would be a nice ABC game if that is an option. I'm just saying. Pretty good. I like your chances against Alabama as long as you don't leave 80 runners on base like Tennessee did. So, Vic, give me your thoughts on those 4 teams.
Well, the interesting thing, first of all, with Duke and the story with Coach Marissa Young, it's been highlighted what her husband has been going through off the field during the offseason. For her to get to Oklahoma City And to get this team there, in spite of all of that she's gone through off the field, it's a testament to her and her staff that she's built in Durham. So congratulations to her. And remember, Duke played Oklahoma tough that opening game of the season in Puerto Vallarta. Was only a 3-0 game won by the Sooners. So Duke would not be intimidated or scared of playing the Sooners. But Eric, Shelly, I've said this multiple times on the podcast since April. Playing Oklahoma and Norman is one thing. Playing Oklahoma in Oklahoma City is an entirely different beast.
Yeah.
So why would you say that? Why would you say that, Vic?
We have a little bit of experience with that at UCLA, and being the little square of blue in the sea of red, it is it's a battle. And look, I'm not one of those that says you should move the championship series. Oklahoma City is a phenomenal venue, phenomenal stadium. And, if you can't win, in another guy's park, you can't win. So I'm not at all suggesting we should move the series. But, it is going to take an effort for anybody to beat them on that field. It just is. And they're good. They're good. I mean, let's get real. They're one of the best teams in the country, and they can beat anybody. The thing I like about this World Series is I think anybody can beat anybody in this field on any given day. And that's exciting. We haven't had that in quite a while.
Let me let you go on this. I want you to talk about a little bit of the coverage we're going to have on D1 softball this week, because we got 1,000 people going to be in Oklahoma City. They're getting ready. We're going to have constant content there. Just kind of give the audience a chance to talk what we can expect this week, because we got Jenna's going to be there. You're going to be there. We got to cast the
So we're going to have both our print and digital aspects covered. Jenna Becerra is going to be in Oklahoma City along with Paige Halstead, former Bruin, who was in Oklahoma City a few years ago, won a championship. She's going to be pairing with Jenna to do our digital coverage. Justin McLeod, of course, everybody knows Justin, is leading all of our print coverage, our written coverage. You're going to see a lot of previews and storylines on the website. And we're going to have maybe some live shows coming up in the next several days that you might want to hear about. So more to come on that. But yeah, the D1 team will be in OKC and ready to go, and super excited to be there.
All right, Shelly, I'm going to get you ready. You got to pack up. You got to get ready. By the way, I'm looking at my group chat. Jenna seems to be doing okay.
Jenna's sending photos of Stanford, Stanford winning, and that's why
I would do the same thing. I would do the same thing. I hear she's kind of important over there.
She's the mayor of Stanford. Yeah, she's definitely the mayor of Stanford. But look, glad to represent the West Coast. I'm going to let Jenna, celebrate her victory. But it's going to be a great World Series. I can't wait to get there.
All right, Shelly. I look forward to it. We'll be talking later this week. But thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
take care, guys. Bye.
All right, that is Shelly Carlin joining us there. Look for the great coverage all week on Oklahoma City. All right, Victor, give me your thoughts on this whole day here, and we'll get to it. I want to get into all the super regionals real quick and give our thoughts there. But give me your overall thought. Where do you want to go? Where do you start?
Well, first thing for me, the fact that we got 5 game 3s in this super regional, the most ever since we had the super regional format. It just tells you again how close these teams were in all these matchups. The only real matchup, Eric, that was a mismatch was UCLA versus Georgia and Oklahoma State.
It played out that way. It wasn't on paper. We'll get to that on that. But you're right. Other than that, it was very competitive. And I thought today, every game except the Stanford LSU game, it came down to the last at bat.
But if you really think about it, Stanford LSU came down was a tightly contested game for the first 4+ innings, and then Stanford
great. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. Every game today was just phenomenal softball to watch, and this is what this is what Shirley was getting to, that any team could beat anybody at any given day. And we saw that in full display, not just today on Sunday. Well, technically it's Monday, but we saw that the last 2 days in super regionals with I think was probably the greatest stretch of action in super regionals maybe ever, with the 14-inning marathon with Alabama, Tennessee, and then a classic back-and-forth game in Austin between Texas and Texas A&M. It was just, if you were a softball fan, you were planning on your couch with multiple screens, trying to keep up with all the action, and it was just chef's kiss, phenomenal softball.
Well, let's get into it. Let's start with the
Yeah.
Super Regional. That's going to be the most memorable of this one by far, which is arguably right now in conversation for the greatest at least the wackiest, wildest, most emotional, intense Super Regional that's ever been played, and that's Texas and Texas A&M. Unbelievable roller coaster of emotion and just roller coaster of swings and momentum. Where
Yes.
Texas found the way to win that Super Regional 2 out of 3. They lost game 1 6-5, was down 5-1 in the 6th. Mounted a comeback, took the lead. You think, oh, they're good. They're going to close, even this up, only to see Maya Davis tie it up. Andrew Haynes is exhausted. Does that mean you don't want to come on, Andrew? If they can send you the link, if you want to come on. And
hey, look, after all the softball and near heart palpitations, look, well, Andrew, I'm surprised Andrew Haynes has a voice. So we're going to give Andrew the night off.
Yeah, because I'm sure he needs his voice.
Yes, exactly.
But Maya Davis ties it up, and you're like, oh, my God, it's 8-8. Texas comes back, scores 9-8, the craziest game. And then to game 3, you're like, could it live up to it? And it did. A&M had a chance. Texas found the way. Let me just say a few things about Texas A&M. First of all, Texas A&M, that was the greatest broadcasted softball series. I'll go back to Saturday's the greatest softball broadcast, period. I thought Kevin Brown and Amanda Scarborough were phenomenal. That is the greatest softball broadcast ever. If you want to just put it on a template, hey, what is a softball broadcast supposed to be like? That's the broadcast. That's the greatest broadcast ever. I don't know who does the Sports Emmys Awards nominees and stuff, but they better put that in. They won't for whatever reason. We got to put, these same people over and over from the other sports.
Yeah, the same 8 to 10 people.
To me, it was amazing. I thought Kevin Brown nailed every storyline. They both did. Nailed every storyline, from the fact that you had Mac Morgan, the former Arizona State ace, facing her former coach, Tricia Ford, to facing her former teammates, and Jasmine Hill, a rivalry in itself. What's at stake with the possibility of Texas becoming the 3rd 1 seed to go down? Oh, my God. They just delivered on every note. And I thought the director was phenomenal. I don't know who the director was, but I've even watched it in game 3 there where Kavan's trying to get out of that bases loaded jam in the 6th and then again in the jam in the 7th. And what are they showing? They're showing the icon of that program right there, all stressed out, while Tegan Kavan, the phenom who could be the future is now. Yes. And she gets out of that jam. It was incredible television. Incredible television that not only was incredible if you're a diehard softball fan, but even if you're a casual sports fan, which this time of year, you're going to attract some of those.
Yes.
That's going to glue people in. And my goodness, did Brown and Scarborough deliver on all cylinders. So I salute to them, Victor, because they were phenomenal. And I'm sure Andrew Haynes was phenomenal on the radio side as well.
Of course he was.
But I'm just saying, Kevin Brown and Amanda Scarborough, to me, that is the standard. That's one of the greatest broadcasts ever, and added to this incredible Super Regional thing.
And Eric, I remember a few years ago when Adam Amin left ESPN to go work with Fox and the Chicago Bulls. There was concern about where would the chemistry be with Amanda Scarborough and Adam Amin. They not only hit a home run with Kevin Brown, they hit a freaking grand slam with Kevin Brown and Amanda Scarborough. Those two together have been such a phenomenal pair. And here's the other thing, Eric. They don't really work with each other much in the regular season because of Kevin Brown's obligations with the Baltimore Orioles on the television side. So for them to have that kind of chemistry in the limited time that they have together as a pair makes what they do should be even more celebrated. And I'm looking forward to seeing them calling that first day of action in Oklahoma City. And they got 2 good games. They got UCLA and Alabama. And
we're assuming they're calling the afternoon session. I'm not sure that's a guarantee. We'll see what they decide. Remember last year they called the night session. So
they did.
We'll see.
I just want to know who's going to be on.
I wish baseball would go. Major League Baseball go on strike so Kevin Brown's more available to do softball. That'd be awesome. So Glenn Warshaw, thanks for having the live show tonight. Boomer Sooner. We'll get to Oklahoma in a moment later on.
Yes, we shall.
Looking forward to attending the World Series once again. Jojo Rodriguez Lopez chimes in. Do y'all think that Texas A&M gave the field a plan and how to handle the multiple-headed pitching staff of Texas? That's an interesting question. A&M had a lot of success against the Texas pitchers. There's no doubt about it. I believe they gave the stat in Game 3. This is the highest-scoring super region, I believe.
Ever.
I do think there's some things there that teams will look at what A&M did against this Texas staff. It's not a staff that's going to overpower you. There's some long balls there, some pitches hung there. I think there's some things that certainly some teams will look at. Got to execute, though. A&M had some hitters.
Here's
Trinity Cannon, who was on fire.
That's the thing. That was going to be my point, Eric. Do Oklahoma State, and remember, Oklahoma State beat Texas in the series 2 out of 3 in Stillwater back in April. So Oklahoma State can beat them. Florida's offense with Otis and Erickson and Skylar Wallace and Kendra Falby, could they piece some things together to get to Texas? And of course, we've highlighted what Stanford did versus the Longhorns earlier this season. So it is not a difficult. I don't think a 1 seed, Eric, that made it to the Women's College World Series has had a tougher path to get there than Texas has.
Well, I agree. And that's why I tweeted, if you're an Oklahoma fan, I'm celebrating because you got the easier draw. You got an easier path than Texas does. You look at Texas, they're going to have to face Najee Kennedy for a third time.
Yep. And if you win that, you likely have to face either.
Whatever is going to, regardless, you're either going to have to play Oklahoma State and Lexi Kilfoyle, or you're going to have to face Keegan Rothrock in Florida. Either way. That is unbelievable. That is unbelievable. With due respect to the other side of the draw, if I'm Oklahoma, I'll take my chances against the Duke team that's never been in this stage, not in this platform, big stage, no way. And then either take your chances with UCLA, who I think could give Oklahoma a game. That would be, that's the game I would like to see. Or Alabama, which, congrats, they matched their totals of SEC Series 1 for the whole year with their series win this weekend. They've now won.
But guess what? They're in Oklahoma City. That's all that matters.
Well, luck. You know what they say about, horses shoe up, Anyway, so.
Okay.
Listen, we'll get to that.
Okay.
But the point is this. I would rather.
Bama's fans. Sorry, tweets out of Eric Lopez.
Listen, no. Those fans were calling. They bailed on them weeks ago. So I don't want to hear from them. They bailed on them.
I want to give receipts then.
Some of the players. Yeah, well, whatever. Receipts, whatever. Point is this. I'd rather be on that draw than on the other draw. Like if we did the Division II model, which, Lord, let's not do Division II stuff because they're idiots.
Do you really want to go there now?
No, nobody cares. If you redraft, if you just reseeded this team of 8, okay? Let's put Oklahoma and Texas aside. I would argue UCLA, we might have a debate here, right? It could be UCLA, maybe Oklahoma State gets the 3rd pick, right? Assuming Oklahoma and Texas are your first 2 picks.
Yeah.
After that, all the picks are coming from the top draft pick. Like, I think Alabama and Duke would be the last 2 picks. They'd be the 7 and the 8 seed if we reseed it. Would you not agree with that? I think Alabama would be the 8.
I'm looking at the D2, looking at the bracket right now. If they did reseed, it would be Texas, Florida. I'm trying to figure out.
Texas and Oklahoma in some form would be 1 and 2.
Yeah, Texas,
I think the debate would become: do you keep Oak State at 3? Do you go with Florida at 3? You could go either way. Or UCLA, the way they've been playing, you could go with them at 3. I think that's your debate. But then after either that, let's just say for argument's sake, you go UCLA at 3, just because they're playing really well. Oklahoma State, Florida, and Stanford would all get in that 4 to 6 range, hypothetically. Like there's no draft and there's no ranking at all where you would put Alabama or Duke over any of those teams. Not even close.
Here's the thing. The thing. Alabama continues to find a way.
Well, did they find a way or did they find a way or did Tennessee find a way to lose?
You had to take advantage of those situations. Alabama got the walk-off hit on the 14th inning where Tennessee had chance after chance after chance. Caleb Beaver
left 18 on base. You're going to lose when you leave 18 on base. Alabama and then they got the grand slam in the first. They pulled it out, but they got a favorable draw. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. You agree with that?
But you still got hey, it doesn't matter what draw you have. It's a matter of you getting through the draw and getting to Oklahoma City. And that's what Patrick Murphy has done once again with Alabama. And again, if all the talk about what's Alabama going to look at without Montana Fouls, well, Kayla Beaver proved why she was named on our top 26 finalist list for Player of the Year. She willed Alabama through that 14-inning marathon on Saturday and came in relief in the 7th inning when the situation got sticky, picked up the final 2 outs, and got the Crimson Tide back to Oklahoma City. So I am going to credit Patrick Murphy for finding a way once again.
Are you picking him? Are you picking him to beat UCLA?
I don't have to answer that question right now.
I
don't have to answer that question right now. Your conversation is about Oklahoma. Your question is about, did Alabama get lucky or did Tennessee luck out to give Alabama opportunity?
I think the answer is all the above.
Alabama took advantage.
They did take it. I agree with you. They took advantage. I agree they took advantage, and that deserves to win based on that. But they also got a good draw. And boy, it's a lot easier when you play.
Time out. How we're saying it's a good draw when you're facing the number 3 national seed and the 2-time SEC.
A team that you've played in the regular season 3 times, or you know them as well as anybody. You know how to play. I would rather play Tennessee than play Texas or Oklahoma if I'm Alabama. It's a great draw. It's a great draw for them.
Were we saying that last year where Alabama beat Northwestern?
Yes, we were. I said they got a great draw because they got a 5 seed. Absolutely. Of course they did.
Okay, so look, you know what? I'm gonna table the conversation for right now.
Doesn't mean that hey, congrats, you should be in. But you got lucky as well. You got to be lucky to get through here sometimes, right? Every team needs some luck to get in. And Alabama got a favorable draw. And they took advantage of it. But Tennessee lost this series. They were the best team in the SEC, and they could not hit the second half of the year. They left a lot of runners on base, and that's something they're going to live with. And I knew they were in trouble. When you lose that 14-inning game and you used Pickens as much as they did, you knew you were in trouble going into the next game. And Alabama jumped on Godshaw early. Credit to them on that. One swing makes the difference. But that doesn't change my mind. They're the 8th best team in this World Series.
Hey, Mark Barnett, you darn right. I'm being like Roll Tide. Exactly. Because I want to give Patrick Murphy the proper credit.
Well, he's a Hall of Fame coach. Doesn't mean you don't get lucky sometimes. Yeah, I mean, they were fortunate. They were very fortunate. Tennessee's hitting was bad. And again, why does Tennessee always get paired with the SEC team in the Supers?
I don't know.
It's unbelievable.
But hey, you got to take advantage of the matchups, and that's exactly what Alabama did. But let's get to can we stay with SEC teams hosting who did not advance for 2000, please? Let's talk about Missouri. How about Cassidy Curd and the performance she had?
Boy, that got crazy though, didn't it? That got crazy in that 9th inning. It went from a scoreless game, and then Duke scores 3 runs. We have this drama where they scored 4, but I'm saying you're right, they scored 4. But the drama is when the home runs hit and they review whether she touched home plate. What went through your mind when all that was going on?
I'm like, did she touch home plate? That's the first thing I was thinking with that play in Missouri. Like, did she touch home plate? And again, the ruling was upheld, meaning that they didn't have enough evidence to overturn. I saw Missouri people pointing over there. I'm like, did she not touch home plate? And they saw the replay. And I'm like,
let me ask you this question.
Yes.
If they would have said she didn't touch home plate, let's say they overturned that. Wouldn't that have ruined the game at that point? Because that's all we'd be talking about. Like, have we gone too far with this? Can we please tone this back with this review nonsense about touching, did she leave early? I saw this in the Florida game. The Florida game, the momentum switched because a runner apparently left early in second base with the bases loaded. No, the Florida runner did. Because Florida was on the verge of knocking out Baylor. They overturn it. man, we're seeing a million reviews about this. I think it's out of control, Vic. It's out of control.
It is getting ridiculous because that's what happens when you open up Pandora's box, sir. Everyone's gonna continue to exploit it. And
I think she touched home plate, by the way, for the record.
Yes,
she touched.
Look like she did to me. Look like she got the front foot on the edge of home plate and then she leapt over it. Hey, I have no problem with it.
I agree. Here we got viewers saying, I am pro review, but it needs to be tamed. Hey, I agree. That's a great way to describe it.
Amen, Nolan. Amen.
I'm with you. And I'll tell you this, having been in Gainesville, the way the SEC does reviews is very efficient. They got the mic'd up, explains it to the audience. I think that's actually really good. But yeah, we're letting coaches get away with just reviewing, convincing the umpires. And I told you this. I've gone off on this. It's the same thing. The coach comes out. They don't want to challenge because they don't want to burn the challenge. But at the same time, they're like, hey, maybe you guys should look at that. Here's the thing. And then they talk for 5 minutes and then they review.
Here's what should happen in 2025. If a coach mentions the word challenge, if the umpire says, do you want to challenge this? And the coach says, no, you cannot challenge. And then I will say then the crew chief can buzz down and say, hey, I want to take a look at it. So the umpires say, do you want to challenge this play? The umpires have to be clear and decisive. Do you want to challenge? And if the coach says, and the coach doesn't answer within 5 seconds, you can't challenge. Go back to the dugout. And then that discretion goes up to whoever the crew chief is on the field, or if you have a centralized review, if they want to take a look at it, they can take a look at it. No, none of this hemming and hawing or
let's go straight. And why can't we just do, for example, on runs, when they challenge stuff at home plate? Why can't we just do football where every score is automatically reviewed?
Thank
you.
Yes.
Wouldn't that just save time? Right?
Yes.
It's not that complicated. It's not that complicated. I'm happy. I'm just glad that did not become a factor in that game. That was a home run. It's not like she missed home base, but that's what's going to happen now. Every time somebody makes a big play, we're going to review because we had nothing to lose.
Well, we got to review it. We got to review it running left early.
Right. But good thing for Duke is they scored 4 runs in that inning.
Yes.
Because Missouri came back 3 runs. You could tell some nerves got in the way.
Mm-hmm.
But Duke found a way to win. They held on, and for the first time ever, they're going to the World Series. And I think that's huge for them and for the job that Marissa Young, you mentioned that earlier. I thought that was a great point. And it's big for the ACC, which has taken some punches this year. And we kept saying, who's going to step up other than Florida State? Who's going to step up other than Florida State and break through? Well, it was Duke. And I got to give credit to our friend, Alex Powers, who back in March on her podcast, on our podcast, on the broadcast with me, etc., said, because she saw Duke up close, beat Florida State. She said their World Series material. I don't want to get into the whole top 8 seed. I think they got a good draw. I mean, they played Missouri. They played their way in.
Yes.
Big for them. Big for them. Big for the program. Congrats to Duke. It's not a basketball, just a basketball school. So
no, it's not.
Taylor Darnell, I'm not new. I'm not new to softball, but I'm new to an In the Circle. And I say I love listening to you, Eric and Victor. Your passions unmatched. Yes, Vic and I are not afraid to just go back and forth.
Thank you, Taylor.
Yell and argue. That's how this whole show started. We just decided instead of we should just record it when we argue. Sometimes, and that's what happens.
And now everybody's got a softball podcast. So
wonder how that happened. So Duke went heartbreak for Missouri
again.
It's tough for Larissa, who's done a heck of a job in Missouri and that group, seniors there, but 21 super regional, a win away against JMU. 22, you run into the buzzsaw in Arizona in the regional at home. Last year, obviously, got sent to Norman. That's going to happen. And then this year, you come from behind. You win that regional against Omaha. Maybe and then you drop that first game to Duke, but you bounce back. Incredible atmosphere in Missouri.
Yes.
Maybe you're the team of destiny. And now it's just a heartbreaking 9 inning. You're right there. Oh, crushing. It was that game was amazing for both sides. And you felt I got to the point where Vic, when they went to extra innings, man, you're gonna feel bad for whoever loses this game.
Mm-hmm.
Because we mentioned this, these two teams have been knocking on the door the last few years, right? Duke had been to a couple supers. They hadn't won a super regional game until this weekend. and these opportunities are not guaranteed.
No.
And you don't know when you could get back. And that was one of the things about this super regional. I don't know if you agree with this, Victor. You were watching it more. I was in games, but we'll get to that. It felt much more emotionally personal in a lot of ways. Like you just can sense the emotion and the passion where you just like, the A&M players are in tears. It was just investing stuff. It was just remarkable television. Like I say, your heart goes out to Missouri, who had a heck of a year, earned a top 8, got themselves a top 8 seed, and was one win away, maybe a swing away from the World Series, but denied again against a Duke team that, I think proved that they are a top 8 team and represented the ACC very well.
Yes.
In a year that was a little interesting there for a while.
Well, I think with the emotional thing, Eric, is because remember, a lot of these teams have these 4th and 5th year players, sometimes 6-year players because of the COVID year and transferring in and these grad students. So you have these huge senior classes that are departing programs. So you're having more. So you're having a core that long time core being in your program, setting up the foundation, and they realizing this is our last shot to get to the mecca of college softball. For Duke, knocking on the door, Florida State being the class of the league, and some people have felt that Clemson surpassed them with their meteoric rise to success. And for the Duke, this program to beat a team outside of Florida State to get to the Women's College World Series, not Clemson, is a testament to what Coach Marissa Young has built, taking that time, getting that program, getting those steps, and building it properly. And you look at Missouri, again, kind of like LSU. Okay, you have a big class, you lose that. What does Larissa Anderson do in terms of the incoming freshman class and going through that transfer portal to try and re-solidify that roster for 2025? It's just remarkable to see what's going to happen with that Missouri program. And again, for Duke, a big boost for their program. I'm sure Alex Powers, Brittany McKinney, they're going to enjoy being back in Oklahoma City covering the Blue Devils and their story this weekend for the Women's College World Series.
I better see John Shire out there. Right? Am I right?
Hey, well, Jay Williams going to be capping up Duke over on my leader.
Vic, I want you to address this. A tradition.
Yes.
Keith Stevenson. Hey, NCAA, I can't find a single Women's College World Series bracket with game numbers. Do the elimination game winners swap brackets? So confusing other than the initial groups of 4. Pretty lame, I think. Vic, would you like to explain?
About the fact that the crossover is probably one of the dumbest things that they have.
Here we go. You don't like
things that they have.
That's not what I'm asking you to do. Just explain how it works for Keith. That's all.
Okay. So as a matter of fact, if you don't mind, I'm going to present to the people the bracket for the NCAA 40 Women's College World Series for this year. So as you can see, you got UCLA versus Alabama. That's the opening game on Thursday afternoon. And you got Duke versus Oklahoma, Texas, Stanford, Oklahoma State versus Florida. Now, if you notice something, they do have the crossover game. So whoever loses that Saturday game on ABC on 3 p.m. will play.
Okay, so that is an ABC game?
Yes. So if you see game 7, that's Saturday, June 1st, 3 p.m. That's going to be on ABC. And then the June 2nd game to 3 p.m., the elimination game, that also will be on ABC. So let's say in this example, let's say UCLA plays Oklahoma and Oklahoma beats UCLA. So UCLA will then drop down and play whoever survives the elimination game on Friday night, Sunday night at 7 p.m. And then on the same side of here, let's say Najee Kennedy and Stanford win and they play Oklahoma State and Stanford beats Oklahoma State. So Oklahoma State will jump up here to play the 2 p.m. to play that 3 p.m. game Sunday on ABC against whoever wins the elimination game on Friday night. So yes, they do have that crossover potential. So hopefully I was able to provide it in a nice little
All right, Keith, let me know. Let me know if that explanation worked. If not, I don't know what to tell you.
Hey, sorry.
But they did the crossover. I think Vic does a good job. He did a better job than I would have explaining it. But yes, they do cross over on that. Other comments from Kaylin Dean. I liked that. It felt like Mike White and Tricia Ford were running those umpires. You think? That's correct. Yes, that's
an understatement. Hey, I'm just thankful that Russ and Steve didn't have another brouhaha after another collision over at first base during that game 3. Because remember, the assistant coaches from Texas A&M and Texas got ejected during game 1.
What was it? Russ Hotfleet, and then Chris Singleton. Yeah, that was got a little wild, got a little emotional, got a little personal, got a little emotional.
A little tense.
What are you going to remember from that Super Regional? That's an iconic Super Regional that's going to be talked about. And by the way, Texas A&M are going to be in the SEC. They're going to hype up the football game. They're going to hype up none of those other sports will ever top this Super Regional. No. That was unbelievable. It was. What will you remember the most from this Super?
Just the atmosphere watching that game. That particular Saturday, those late innings, Texas A&M being so close, Texas comes back. They're a strike away from forcing game 3, and then Maya blasts that home run, which, by the way, was her first extra base hit of her career to tie the game up. And you're just like, this is just the call, the atmosphere, the moment. It had everything you wanted in a softball game, and I was just, man, that was just phenomenal. Theater in its purest form that took place in Austin on that Saturday.
Your reaction to the decision by Tricia Ford to start Emily Kennedy in game 2, pulled her up 5-1. They brought Brooke Vessel in, brought her back in relief. Texas makes the comeback, etc. And then doesn't start Ackerman. They go more by committee. They bring in Kennedy late. Some chatter. What was your reaction to that way that the pitching staffs were handled there? How would you have any issues you have there?
We would have been praising Coach Ford if those moves had worked, if certain things broke a certain way. My whole thing, she had a plan of how she wanted to attack. If Texas A&M was more solid defensively in game 3, then it's Texas A&M that's going to the World Series. And we're giving Tricia Ford a big pat on the back for outthinking Mike White. And here's the other thing we got to consider. Mike White almost got himself in some trouble with those late inning switches in game 2. He brought in Mac Morgan, and Mac Morgan was the one that gave up the home run to tie the game. So both coaches had their moments where you're like,
well, it was tough because, it looked for a while that Texas none of the pitchers had answers for the A&M offense to some extent.
No.
But you make a great point, but you make a good point about the defense for A&M. It kind of imploded at the end of these games.
Yes, it did. And that was the reason why Texas was able to come back late in on Saturday and Sunday to get the win and get themselves to Oklahoma City.
My disagreement is if you're going to start Emily Kennedy there in game 2, you ride her. She's her best. Let her try to win the series. You're up 5-1. Why are we changing pitchers and then changing the rhythm? I was perplexed by that decision. But to your point,
Texas, you know what? And when Texas saw her leave, they're like,
I was surprised. I wonder sometimes you overdo some things, but you make a good point, Victor. The defense for A&M really cost them. I think they made 3 errors in game 3, and Texas took advantage of that. Texas's speed, I thought, won in the series. A&M really struggled defensively against Texas's speed.
Oh, by the way, 7-1. Don't forget about the trash. Oh, yeah.
The trash. Oh, yeah.
The game was delayed in Austin due to trash being built up in the center field wall. And Kevin Brown's description and words of that, Eric, we need to find a way to get Kevin Brown, or at least talk about that at some point when he's in Oklahoma City, because his description of that was just phenomenal. Oh man! By the way,
that was
Kaylin
crazy.
Dean,
That was
yes,
crazy.
it was. By the way, Kaylin Dean chimes in. Shayla did fine. Was confused on Levitt as she only had one good game in the last half of the season. Was expecting Perez to throw before Levitt.
Well, they ran out. I mean, obviously they were trying to find arms by game 3, and that's why I'm saying if either you ride Kennedy in game 2 or you save her for game 3, you're up a game. That's the part I didn't get.
Hey, it is what it is. It is what it is. But again, it was the defense and the misplays from A&M that cost them. That's what happened.
Big time. Imploded.
Texas took advantage of it.
And it was enough. Texas just held on enough. Because it wasn't an easy 21 outs, or in some cases 24 outs to get. Texas, so where are you on Texas? Are you concerned, or could this be a sign that they're a team of destiny? Where do you stand on that? Team of destiny or team of concern?
I will say concern, simply because you're playing a Stanford team that has all the confidence in the world after what happened with them in game 1. Najee Kennedy is pitching on a whole nother level right now, and they played Texas well in the regular season. So they know what it takes to beat Texas. And the fact that Stanford, I'm sure they'll be flying out probably late Monday.
Yeah, but I'm not even talking about the match. I'm talking about how they're coming into the World Series.
I'm concerned. Because if Texas can't figure out their pitching with this draw that you just talked about, Texas could be 2-Q. They could potentially, if they don't get the consistent pitching behind Kayvon, and they have to rely on their offense with the arms that are on this side of a draw, with Kennedy, with Rock, of course, with Kilfoyle. If Texas doesn't shore up their pitching, they could be 2-done in Oklahoma City. And I'm sure Sooner fans will not make any mention of that whatsoever on the timeline if that's what happened.
Seth will never do that, okay? I know Seth.
No, he's a classy individual.
Speaking of Oklahoma, they took care of
that kind of a thing.
That's my guy, Seth. Seth, you're a good man. I enjoy your tweets.
Yes.
Oklahoma took care of Florida State. Dev Texas. Oklahoma beats Florida State. That's what happens. Florida State put up a fight. They always do. But at the end, Oklahoma was the better team. No surprise there. I don't think there's a lot to add to that. Oklahoma, I think, is pitching well. Kirsten Deal got some innings there. They know how to win these games. We know that. And Florida State obviously was limited in the pitching, but the Sooners took care of business there. 2-0. Yes. Florida. Let's talk about where I came from.
Well, you were in Gainesville.
That was a dramatic game. That was a wacky game. Florida-Baylor. They split the first two. Florida jumps on Crandall. Now, Crandall had started the Saturday game, got the win. They go with Crandall. I thought they were going to go Binford. Florida scores 2 in the first, 2 in the second. They knock out Crandall. Were you surprised that Crandall got the ball? Rothrock got the ball. No surprise if you've been following Florida. They're going to ride her, like as Kyle Crooks would say on the air, and I got to see Kelly Barnhill way, like they did a few years back.
Yes.
She's going to dominate the innings there. I was surprised Binford didn't get the start. Were you?
Slightly, only because of how well because what happened on Saturday. But the strike zone, as you know, Eric, in Gainesville started to get a little tight on Sunday. But give Baylor credit. Baylor continued to fight and scrap their way through. And I thought for a second that Baylor was going to try and pull it out at the end, but Florida once again makes it back to Oklahoma City. And for Baylor, given the ups and downs that they went through this year, for them to be in a super regional one game winner take all, that's a phenomenal coaching job by Glenn Moore. For them to get to where they were, to win at Louisiana after being ruled earlier in the day last week, beat Louisiana again, get to supers, and then force Florida to game 3. A heck of a coaching job by Glenn Moore this year.
100%. I'm glad you said that. I thought Baylor, what an up and down year. They had obviously the off the field issues with a suspension and
Yeah.
injuries, and they regrouped and they made a run for within a win away. They had a chance, Victor. I was there. They had Florida fans were nervous because Baylor had gotten it within 5-3, and I tweeted out, "Can Baylor get somebody on to get Govan that chance? The most dangerous hitter in that stadium, because she is amazing." She can't get her out. Like it's hard to get her out. She's an amazing player. And Baylor got a couple on. And I'm like, oh, they got a chance here. And I tweeted, I would not bunt Presley Pylon in that situation. Because if you bunt there, you got runners at second, third. Guess what Florida's going to do? They're going to intentionally walk Govan. Well, Pylon tries to bunt. It pops up in the air. That's an out. They decide to go after Govan. She hits one to deep left at the track. For a moment, you're thinking, is this going to leave the park? It stayed in the park. Florida hangs on to win 5-3 in a game that it looked like for the first half that Florida was going to run rule them. They were up 4-0, had bases loaded. They walked a runner to walk the fifth run, except Baylor challenged that the runner for Florida at second left early. They said, yes, she did leave early. Run is off the board. Then Baylor gets a double play. They turn, and the momentum of the game changed from that point on. It was one of the more bizarre games from that standpoint, Victor. You were watching it on TV. I was there. It took some of the air out of the fan base. Yes. I don't know how it came off on TV.
It felt like, it's like, well, this game's getting in early until you're like, ooh, this could get interesting. Could Baylor take advantage? And the Bears slowly but surely chipped away at that Florida lead, but give credit to Keegan Rock for shutting the door one final time in the seventh inning and put Florida back to Oklahoma City. And look, with Otis, with Erickson, with Skylar Wallace, and this is where having Francesca Anea as an assistant coach comes into play, because she has been in Oklahoma City before in different facets. She can walk through these players what it's like to be on this stage with that experience she's had playing for Coach Walton. So do not underestimate those lessons that she will provide to this team this weekend in Oklahoma City. And also, they play the late game on Thursday. So Florida can take their time, get acclimated, and watch some of the action before they play the Cowgirls on Thursday, which will be a rematch of former teammates Kenny Gasky and Tim Walton.
We've done that storyline before.
Yes, we have.
Oklahoma State. Yeah, Francesca, by the way, now 4 Women's College World Series trips for her, 3 as a player, 1 as a coach. That's 1/3 of the Florida trips. 12 trips for Tim Walton, who you could argue has done his best job of his career this year, and might to get votes for best coaching job in the country this year.
National coach, yeah. I think
him, Kelly Anyway Perez, Kenny Gajewski would be my top 3 in some order. I haven't decided the order, but that would be my top 3.
Can I get Marissa Young some love for National Coach of the Year?
Well, they had high expectations though. They were. This wasn't a shocker, but she's right there. She's right there. I'm good with that. It's a good vote.
This is true.
Oklahoma State. Probably the super regional that nobody saw, because by the time you looked at it, it was over. Because they knocked the bleep out of Arizona, kind of like they did against Oregon last year. And Kenny Gajewski knows what he's doing. 5 straight World Series appearances for Oklahoma State. But I'm saying this is his best job, because I was one of them. He said
with all the talent he lost last year.
Right, yeah.
With all amazing. Not only the talent turnover, a brand new coaching staff, Vanessa Shippey Fletcher, the hitting coach, a new pitching coach, and Carrie Eberly. For him to build that roster and that staff and get back to Oklahoma City this year with a very young, talented roster. We had him on our Big 12 Media Days, and he talked about that. Probably I think the last 2 years for Oklahoma State may be his 2 best coaching jobs that he's done.
No doubt. And this year in particular, and I'm telling you, that Oklahoma State-Florida game, in a way, that's also the future. Look at Florida. A lot of young youth there, especially in the infield, outside of Skylar Wallace, who is a joy to watch in person.
That is going to be an infield to look forward to the next couple
of
years.
But that infield's young. Rothrock, Brown, they're going to add pitching depth next year. Like, that's a fun. And then Oklahoma State, what they've done with Kylie Godwin and company, that's going to be fantastic. Fascinating storyline. Lexi Kilfoyle, I expect to get the ball for Oklahoma State. Good story. Remember what she told us on this podcast before the year? She went to Oklahoma State after she transferred from Alabama because she remembered a good conversation and the fact that Kenny Gajewski was the one that showed her around when she was taking her trip to Florida coming out of high school. When she was being recruited, it was Kenny Gajewski, who was an assistant at Florida at the time, that was showing her around, and she remembered that when she entered the portal. Was like, I wonder if he's interested. Oh, I think he was, and I think it's worked out well for all parties.
I think it has.
It's amazing.
It's worked out for all parties.
They played earlier this year. Remember they rescheduled after the Clearwater rainouts?
Yes,
they scheduled that Monday game. Oak State won 2-0. So I don't know if either coach thought of that long term that they might play again at the World Series. But that is dynamic. Florida against Oklahoma State in that one. But props to Oklahoma State. Look, Arizona, good to be back in the postseason. Super regional for Caitlin Lowe and company. Had some injuries pitching-wise. They now move to the Big 12, as strange as that sounds. But I think Arizona, Oklahoma State, Arizona, you can make the case going into next year. Make me the 2 picks for the Big 12 if you did a preseason poll, which is way, way too early for that.
Way too early.
But a good year for Arizona. Good year for bounce back after missing the tournament.
Yes.
For Caitlin Lowe and company. But they just ran into a buzzsaw in Stillwater there, Oak State. Period. UCLA, we talked a lot about that earlier. Let me just bring this up from a Georgia standpoint. 2 straight super regionals that they got pretty much handled in the supers. Florida State last year, UCLA this year. Tough end for that group of Georgia players. And Tony Baldwin, who said this was his best roster, he thought, in Georgia softball, didn't get back to the World Series. That young group, Victor, you were there, Victor, when they got there in 21 with that young group. They never got back.
And it tells you, Eric, what you talked about earlier, how these opportunities are never guaranteed on a year in, year out basis. Because when Georgia got there in 2021, we all thought that they would be a mainstay in Oklahoma City. Got in the 2 super regionals, haven't been back since.
Yeah. So and they got handled in the last 2. And that's the thing that's disappointing if you're a Georgia fan, is how you got handled. Mm-hmm. It was not competitive at all.
No.
And that was their offense got shut down by UCLA, and they got shut down by Florida State last year in that 6-11. Obviously, we talked about Missouri, Duke, Stanford, obviously Tennessee and Alabama. That's the big upset, if you will. If you call it an upset, it's an SEC matchup. I don't consider SEC Supers an upset because anything can happen. These teams know each other inside out. Which brings up a question from Pokemon Seth. Was the SEC overrated this year? Steve B says, yes, the SEC is always overrated. No way they should get all 13 in the tournament. Kalen Dean disagrees, says, shouldn't get all 13, but don't think they were overrated. They have way more tier 2 teams than any other conference. Just don't have the top tier OU, Texas, Oak State. It's an interesting conversation. By the way, if you see me showing my hands, I have this little bug thing. Maybe it was the thing that it went into Larissa Anderson's mouth that she tweeted about.
No. That was much bigger. Those cicadas?
Yeah. I don't think I have that in my – I don't think I have that in my –
Those things were something fierce over in Como.
I don't want any part of that.
No.
So, yes, the SEC is overrated. Let's just call it for what it is. They get 13 in because softball is the only sport that rewards teams to finish dead last in the bottom. The only sport, period.
Only sport.
No other sport. Check out D1Baseball.com's coverage, by the way, on Monday. Selection show, college baseball with our friends, Kendall Rogers, Aaron Fitt, Mark Etheridge, my guy.
Nerdcast going on.
That is airing. Check that out. I'm going to check that out. College baseball, noon Eastern on a holiday, by the way, selection show. Hello. Remember, we used to complain about those 10 o'clock at nights where we didn't have to work on a holiday.
No, we didn't.
I don't think the SEC, and I think Kalen's onto something. They didn't have a national championship contender this year. Not even close.
No, they didn't.
And my mistake was, and maybe this is where you're right about the Alabama team. I thought Tennessee could be that team. Clearly they were not. And they didn't. You look at the Big 12, they got 3 in, was literally one swing away from Govan from having 4 and turning this into a Big 12 tournament, the sequel. And the Pac-12 had 2 teams in. And I would argue that the SEC is a long shot once again to not even make the championship series. They have not been representing in the championships. You know what was the last time they represented? They got even to the champ series?
Was that, I want to say, was that 2017?
Correct. With our good friend Amanda Lorenz and the Florida Gators played the Oklahoma Sooners. They had that 17-inning marathon. They have not made a champ series since. It was Florida State.
And yet, year after year, we continue to award the SEC with 13 teams in.
Well,
and by the way,
what Kalen says is true. They probably have the best middle-of-the-pack teams. Right. Teams that are okay, that get blown up because you see them on television a lot. So you think they're better than they really are. And that's the truth with the SEC. I'm sorry. I like a lot of the coaches in the league. I think they do a great job from a marketing standpoint, from a coach. So they get the benefit of the doubt because of that. Fair. Because they put money into it like they should. But I've said from day one that I thought the Big 12 is better. And I look at it. Now, this is just for this last year because Oklahoma and Texas are going to the SEC and that. Have fun with that. Have fun with that, all you SEC teams in the middle tier bottom, because you're going to get some losses. Because if you think Oklahoma,
reality is coming real quickly.
I'll give you a wrestling analogy. The SEC is WCW. OU and Texas is the NWO. They're coming into it. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Look it up, young people. That's what's coming. So, yeah, I think the Big 12 was better at the top. Pac-12 was interesting this year, but I think UCLA, Stanford, I would take them. Now, Florida is a team that's interesting because I think they're ahead of schedule. I think if you tell me next year Florida's a national, but who knows? They might know any better.
We don't know.
Keegan Roswell, who won 30 games, by the way. I think Florida will be a national title contender next year. And who knows? They're well coached enough that they could make some noise this year, but yeah, I think to some extent the SEC is overrated because they have not had, during that stretch, a legitimate national title contender. Not even close. They've had good teams, and because they get so many teams, they have a great chance to get teams in the field, and yet all they got this year was 2. They got 2 in the World Series. If they're so great, they only got 2. I guarantee you, like football, the SEC will get more than 2 in the playoff. Yet here they couldn't, in a 12-team field. Here it's an 18 field. They only got 2.
And let's remember, both of them needed 3 games. Both in the beginning to get there. Otherwise, there'll be no SEC teams in the field in the World Series.
Well, and again, they had the thing about the Super.
There'll be one because there'll be an SEC Super. Whoops, almost forgot about that one. But
sure. Kayla Beaver, you covered her in the ASUN, Central Arkansas. Did you see this in her?
She had a potential. But going to Alabama with the new pitching coach there, Kayla Beaver showed that she really was the guts and the glue of that pitching staff. Because everyone was concerned about what was going to happen with no Montana Fouts in 2024. And Kayla Beaver stepped into that role, and she accounted herself very well. And for her to be in the bottom of that dog pile, knowing that she helped lead Alabama to the Women's College World Series, I'm sure she's excited. It gave her validation for that move to go from Central Arkansas to Tuscaloosa, and she's going to be remembered for getting Alabama back to the Women's College World Series once again, second straight year.
If you're Tennessee or Karen Weekly, what's keeping you up late?
You can't leave 18 runners on base.
Saturday.
You can't have 10 of them in scoring position in a 14-inning game. Because, and Eric, we broadcasted a lot of games where we've seen teams leave 10, 11, 12, 13 runners on base, and they always lose the game 4-3 or 3-2. And the one thing you look at, if they would have done this, if they wouldn't have taken care of this situation with first and second with nobody out, if they couldn't have gotten a hit with the bases loaded, it's always those missed opportunities to come back to bite you in the end. And it's just tough. It's tough because you had a great offense this year. You're pitching.
But see, I think that's the problem. They weren't as good as last year's offense. That's the thing. I thought in the second half.
Because last year, the offense was here. The pitching was kind of here. This year, towards the end of the season, it flipped. The pitching was here.
Well, and yet they probably needed a third arm. And that was my concern. is they didn't have a third arm. And you look at how that super regional played out with Pickens, who's just a joy to watch, with Gottschall. They had to use them both in game 1. Then they used them both in game two. And then the worst case scenario is Pickens, who's your best pitcher, goes 10+ innings?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you don't win that game, you probably don't. Now, she came again today. But
Eric,
the point is, Alabama, think about it. Going back to the regular season where they played a low-scoring series, Tennessee won 2 out of 3. How many times has Alabama seen those two pitchers? A lot. And eventually, they're going to hit something. And they did. Enough of that. And that's a danger there. But you can't. You're right. Tennessee had a chance to knock them out in game 2, and they didn't do it. And, boy, when you leave a team hanging, they're going to bite you.
Here's the thing. It's like a prize fighter. You got them on the ropes. You give them body blow at the body blow, but you don't give them that knockout punch. And then when they knock you down, you take the standing 8 count. You're staggered. And then they give you the haymaker the very next round. You're the one that's trying to battle back and trying to fight. That's what Alabama did. They stayed on the ropes long enough, took Tennessee's best punch, countered, got them on the ground in the 14th inning with the walk-off on Saturday, and then hit them with the haymaker with the grand slam in the first inning on Sunday. And Tennessee was playing catch-up ever since.
Against Gottschall, and then it was fitting. They had the bases loaded in the 7th inning. Only got 1 run in. I mean, that was a story. That was a story.
Alabama took advantage of the opportunities. Tennessee did not. Plain and simple.
And that's, I believe I saw, you could correct me if I'm wrong. Is this the 4th home regional Tennessee's lost in 6?
Yes.
I mean, right? Lost to Oregon State in a regional at home.
State,
JMU and Liberty that year,
home.
right? The year to JMU. This super regional you lose at home. I don't know if I'm trying to remember. I don't know the other one. Of course, they had a heartbreaker on the road in Gainesville in 19. They've had some rough. I mean, part of it is, again, you don't get good draw. Well, you get good draw. And again, it seems like, look, it's going to be part of it, especially now that the SEC is going to 15 teams. They're going to have SEC super.
It's going to be, it's inevitable.
Oh, yeah. It's going to happen. I just don't understand why Tennessee is involved in every one of them. Because that feels that way. It feels that way.
Depth, Texas, Tennessee playing.
Well, and you and I disagree. You did. That's why I thought Alabama had a chance because they've seen them enough. There's a familiarity, and those series were tight, and Beaver can keep it close, and it becomes a timely hitting. And Caleb Bro, it's a good time to be a broadcaster and get to coaching. You got 2 former broadcasters will be at the World Series, Caleb Bro and Francesca Anea. So the moral of the story: just leave Mike Cousins. Leave Kyle Crooks, and you'll be in the World Series as a coach.
I'm not going to start any coaching rumors on this show at 1 o'clock a.m. Eastern time.
So we got Alabama, UCLA will be the first game on Thursday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Los Angeles time. Like you said, it seems like the Pac-12 is
again. You have Texas and Pac-12 teams getting the opening game.
Hey, at least for UCLA, this will get them used to the Big Ten because they love those early games. That's my first game.
Get used to that, Shelly. I'm sorry.
Oklahoma, Duke, as you mentioned, a rematch of Puerto Vallarta on that one. That's the 2 games. The 3rd game will be, I'm looking at the schedule. You got Oklahoma State, Florida is the late game. Texas, Stanford is the 7 o'clock game. There's a little bit of confusion on where is the night games because I think the NCAA said ESPN, but that's not correct.
I want to stress, ladies and gentlemen, I got this information from NCAA.com. However, in all likelihood, the evening session will likely be on ESPN2 because on Thursday night it will be Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals in the NHL between the New York Rangers and the Florida Panthers. And trust me,
we can watch the Panthers lose in overtime to the Rangers again. Is that what you're saying?
I did not want you to bring that up, sir. I did not want you to bring that up.
All right, we got comments. Let me read more comments here coming in. Jamie Lowprice, a friend of the show, former Aggie great. Emotional, dramatic, crazy, super. I agree with all those feelings. Amazing fight by both the Aggies and the Longhorns. Talking about it. She was there, by the way, for the A&M Texas series.
Yeah, I'm sure her.
Is that the best super regional that you've seen? Best super regional? I think for me, it's the most craziest, amazing super regional.
It is the whack. Wow. I
actually did a poll. I did a poll on Twitter. Which is the best Amanda Scarborough Super Regional? Because she did the Florida A&M one in 2017 with the walk-off.
Yeah, it's a walk-off home run.
She did the Alabama-Nebraska one with Adam Amin, which was kind of their coming out party back in like 2014. Like that's arguably two of the best. Those three, and this one right here is three of the best Super Regionals we've had in the last decade. There was a good Texas Alabama one like 5 years ago.
Well, Steven chimes in. Arizona State Northwestern.
Oh, that was crazy. You're right. And Tricia Ford was involved in that one. The head coach at Arizona. Some of these players were as well. That was the Mike Cousins, Caleb Bro. Yeah, that was the last one for Northwestern. That was the 8-9. That was 2 years ago. That was a good one. It's a good one. Yeah, bring in your other picks. I'm all about it. You're all carrying us on the show. This is great. By the way, people are defending the crossover. Crossover is great. It should be possible for any two teams to make the final. I like the crossover as well. Keith Stevenson. All hail Victor. I need that bracket though. Where is it? All hail Victor. You got some fan base tonight here, Victor.
What can I say? I mean, first of all, the fact that y'all are still rocking with us at almost 1 a.m. Eastern time
unless you're listening to this on the podcast, and whatever.
Yeah, that part. By the way, that podcast is coming out on Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. So heads up.
We'll let you sleep. Yeah, we're gonna let you.
Yeah, I get to sleep on Monday. Thank you. You're so
yeah. Wow, we got one Bolero, by the way, chiming in from Japan. He's a diehard follower.
Love him.
Salute. Happy, deal there.
Konnichiwa, sir.
I'll defer to you both on that. So where's the best super regional, Vic, is what in yours?
Well, Shelly's chiming in UCLA versus Virginia Tech from a couple years ago.
Kelly Richard. That's a good one. Fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Virginia Tech put a scare into them. I thought about that when Virginia Tech was sent there for the regionals. I think Pete DeMoore doesn't want to go back anytime.
Oklahoma, Alabama.
2015 and Tuscaloosa. That is the only time in the last decade that Oklahoma did not make the World Series. That was a young Paige Parker-led Sooner team. I believe it was her freshman year against
that was her freshman year, and then
one of Chamberlain's last year might have been right.
Yeah, that was 2015, and then 2016 was when Oklahoma won it with Parker and Mendez.
Yeah, they beat Auburn in the national title.
Yeah.
JoJo chiming in. Tonight's bottom of the six errors and misplays by A&M cost them the game. Yeah, you think about that. If they play a clean inning there, maybe they come from behind and win that game. I mean, every play was magnified. That's what made that Super Regional so crazy and amazing. Every play was magnified, Victor. Yes. Every play had consequences and significance in momentum. It was amazing. It wasn't like the greatest played series. I'll give you that, to your point. But man, it was just intense and emotional.
It was exactly. It wasn't the cleanest play series in terms of defense, but in terms of drama and wild momentum swings. But that you can put that Super Regional up against any of the Super Regionals that we just mentioned in the last few minutes, and heck, you could put up against Tennessee and Alabama.
I agree. People chiming in disagree with me about Kennedy game 2, whether to starter or not for A&M, saying that Tim Walton, you could say to make the same argument for Walton in game 2 starting Rothrock. What's fascinating, Tim addressed that. It was interesting. They've been going to ride Rothrock. That's if you've watched Florida, that's what they're going to do. But you know what he did? I thought was smart. And of course, Vic, there was a media person that I would not mention on Saturday that tried to ask Tim about pulling Rothrock. Why? And Tim, let's just say, didn't like the question. So he's like, no, I'm not going to address that. And he moved on. Tim was great, by the way, this weekend. If you get to watch the post games, it was entertaining. But you know what he did that I thought was smart? When they got down 3-0, you know what he did? He pulled her. It was old school. Remember that, Vic? The old days, pitcher struggled or Yeffiiner? Get him out. Don't make him waste pitches because you're going to bring him back game 3. Mm-hmm. And Ava Brown gave him a quality outing in game 2, which could pay dividends, I think, if they want to make a run at the World Series. But they're going to ride Rothrock. But he went old school there. He's like, and he said in the post game on Sunday, told us he was the one that made that decision. It wasn't Chelsea Barkley. It wasn't anybody on the staff. He decided to make that move. He's like, I'm just going to take her out. And I think it paid off because she regrouped. She was solid today. It's interesting that got brought up about Rothrock. Because I asked Kyle Crooks, I asked people that, follow the team every day. And I'm like, hey, what do you think? Avery Brett? No, we're going Rothrock. Everybody knows. And listen, nobody's going to question Stanford goal with, Kennedy every day. And I think Florida's going to ride Rothrock because that's who they trust. And so far, so good, right? It's worked out for them recently, hasn't it? They
worked out pretty well.
Pokemon thinks Texas will make the semis, but not the final. Glenn makes a great point. I think Oak State, Stanford, the big question is other than their aces. The format, with the format that was tweaked a year or two in the World Series, Vic, don't you think it helps Stanford and Oklahoma State to some extent? Because you don't have to play those crazy double headers on elimination Saturday, come back Sunday.
And here's the other thing it does. It gives emphasis to winning that opening game. Because if you win that opening game, you get an opportunity you get rewarded with that day off. Because let's go back one more time. Look at the bracket. Because if you win on Thursday, you get Friday off. You get to relax. You get to get yourself reset. And look, if the best part about it is you play as close to your regular time on Thursday as possible. So if you win your Thursday game, if you're, let's say, on bracket 1, you play Saturday at 3. If you win your game in bracket 2, you play Saturday at 7. As opposed to if you lose, you have to play Friday. So again, it gives emphasis on winning. If you win, you get a day off. You win on Saturday, you get a day off, and then you have to win twice on Monday, and then you have to be knocked off twice on Monday to avoid losing, to not get knocked out in the and not advance to the champ series. So it gives an emphasis on winning those games, winning, advancing, and getting days off. Especially if you're Stanford, especially if you're Florida, because you're going to ride your one arm. That's why, as I said when we had Shelly on, you want to win that Thursday game. Give your ace rest, because you know you're going to pitch them on Saturday. And if you win that game, you give them another day of rest, and you get to pitch them on Monday, knowing that they have had to beat you twice, not advancing the game.
Questions. We're going to keep going. Got a lot of questions, guys. We're going to get to all of them before we wrap up. Will Oklahoma ride Maxwell? I don't think so. That's not their style.
No.
Right?
I think it's going to – the thing with Patty Gasso is that she has enough confidence that she can go with Maxwell. She can go with Deal. She can go with Nicole May. She has confidence in those three. And I think Nicole May, once again, she has proven why she may be the most underappreciated pitcher or part of this Sooner run, because whenever Oklahoma has needed an outing in the circle or needs someone to come out of the bullpen, Nicole May, when her number has been called, she has been delivering. And it would not surprise me that her, and along with, as a part of this staff, and that's what Patty Gasso has developed with Oklahoma. You have a staff with Deal, with Maxwell, with May, your top three options. Carly Keeney also you can use. They have arms that they can utilize based on who they're playing and what matchups that they want to exploit and take advantage of. So I don't think Maxwell will get the heavy workload. It all will depend on what matchup they has and what the situation will call.
Comments. Glenmore, maybe.
And by the way, Rob from Canada brings up an interesting point. Gasso has a quality staff and probably be the deepest staff. I agree. And I said this when we had our season opening preview. This is the deepest staff that Jen Rocha has had to deal with Oklahoma in terms of the different arms and the ability of each of those pitchers. And they've started now to find their individual roles and impact on this program.
But other than Maxwell and May, the others don't have a ton of any experience as far as the big stage here at the World Series, which is interesting. Like, how would they handle that? Again, It's a theme. It's fast. There's some questions still there lingering. Glenn Moore might be the most underrated coach. He's definitely up there. I really respect what Glenn's done, and this year with Baylor, I know there was a heartbreaker for them, but man, to get the most out of his teams, he usually does a heck of a job. They're not an easy out, and that was once again proven there. And I'm glad their comment. Healthy Binford is one of the best players in the country. I agree. She's a fun player to watch. I would have started her today. I think we might have had a different result if they started her, but that's the what are we going to do on that? The Auburn job, has that been filled? No, it has not been filled. However, I'm glad that was brought up. I think that's going to be the job, Victor, that's going to dominate the rumor mill. And there's always a job. I've been there. You've been there. When you get to Oklahoma City, yes, people are focused on the games, quote unquote. They're also focused on some of the gossip. Remember, there's a lot of coaches around, a lot of chirping going on. There's always a job that people are talking about. A couple years ago was A&M. Remember when Texas was open? That thing dominated that World Series from a gossip. Auburn, I expect to be a very dominant topic among many in Oklahoma City this week.
Let me ask you this question. Eric, let me ask you this question then, sir. What happens first? We crown a national champion or Auburn names a new head coach?
Say that again. So if Auburn names a new coach or what?
Yeah, so what happens first? We crown a national champion in the World Series, or does Auburn name their next head coach?
Are you talking about the school officially announcing it, or are you thinking Justin McCloud?
I will say officially announcing it.
Because I think Auburn will have a head coach before the national champions crown. Now, whether that's announced officially, I don't know. But I have a feeling our boy Justin McCloud.
Okay. And that's why you need to go to d1softball.com. Find out what's going on with
that. He doesn't sleep. He does not sleep.
No, he doesn't.
And he won't sleep in Oklahoma City.
No.
But yeah, so we'll see what happens there. Let's see. What else we got? Well, we got a lot. If I'm Tennessee, my hitting coach is keeping me up at night. Wow. That's Chris Malvo. But everybody was excited about it last year. Everybody did a great job. Yeah, that was a tough finish this year for Tennessee. Let's see. Next year, Tennessee will have a break from that trend when they're on the road for postseason. Wow. Oh, baby. Wolf. Woo! People piling. My God, there are so many. Vic, have you seen this many comments? Holy macro.
Dude, I tell you, it's one. Dude, when you're watching wall-to-wall softball for the last 2 days, you need an outlet to get your comments and your thoughts out, and that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for with the podcast. And we appreciate y'all hanging out with us with it being 1:08 in the morning Eastern Standard Time on this Memorial Day. So
we had a feeling people are thirsty. Want some there, no doubt. What are your picks for the first round? I'm calling OU, Bama, Stanford, Florida. That is Hernatex making his picks already. People making picks, Vic. You're trying to dodge. People are saying one picks. We might have them later this week.
Well, Eric. I know Shelly teased. So Shelly teased this a little bit earlier, but I hope she doesn't mind if I make this announcement right now. So I'll go. Let me go ahead.
To me, I've been traveling all day. Go ahead.
Okay, hold on. Oh, there we go. All right, folks. So Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Central Time, it will be another D1 Softball in the Circle massive collaboration getting you ready for Oklahoma City. Jenna Becerra, Amanda Lorenz, Shelly Carlin, Eric Lopez, myself, and some guests that we're working on. We'll talk about all 4 matchups in detail, get you ready for Oklahoma City. We'll talk about every matchup. And yes, you will hear me make my picks because Eric was hounding me about that all show long, and I will officially make them for you, Mr. Lopez, and then for everybody on our podcast on our episode on Wednesday. Again, that's going to be on the D1 Softball Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Central Time on Wednesday night. So there will be one Inner Circle episode this week because we're joining forces with the D1 Softball Podcast to get you ready for Oklahoma City.
Rob from Canada, do you think Missouri trying to ride Krings? I think that's what he meant. Lauren.
Yes.
Cost him. Vic, you saw more of that series than I did, to be honest. I was literally driving back from Gainesville. I don't know. I mean, she pitched great, right? What do you think?
He pitched what? Both her and Kerr pitched phenomenally on Sunday, and I just wish that Kerr would have been given more credit on the broadcast for shutting down this Missouri offense. But here's the thing, Eric. Missouri, we saw this with them versus Cameron Meyer in Omaha in regionals, and we saw this with them on that last Sunday. We saw it again. Missouri has trouble consistently hitting. They really didn't get anything going until that ninth inning when they got those 3 runs to cut the lead to 4-3 against Duke. But I got to give Kerr and Wright credit, especially how Wright had her ups and downs in that game. One, didn't really look like herself. Kerr came in, really steadied the ship for Duke, got them that game 1 win, set themselves up for game 3, and Kerr once again was strong on the circle. An efficient game, 9 innings, just over 100 pitches. Did a phenomenal job.
Well, she threw 7. I mean, she got them in extra innings without giving up a run.
Yes.
Missouri's offense was more of the issue in the postseason, don't you think, Vic? Like, they got themselves in trouble in the regionals because they couldn't score against Omaha, right? And that's, to me, the bigger. It was the offense. If you're gonna, I'm not gonna play riding Laura. I'm actually a proponent of, if you're gonna ride your ace, ride your ace. I'm good, man. I miss those days. I'll tell you.
I don't know. It's it was very concerning with Mizzou, but as a pitcher, you have to take advantage of those matchups that you're having an opportunity to do. And I tip of the cap to Kerr and what she was able to do with that Missouri lineup and giving her team a chance until they broke through in the 9th inning with that 4 spot.
Yeah, I would ride her. I wouldn't. She was fantastic for them. At some point, somebody has to step up there. I'm just trying to get through all of these. This is, man. Let's see. What if Oklahoma was just a hosting site? Oh, jeez, people. Don't get Vic going. It's late. Vic doesn't want to hear that.
We're not going there. Nope.
Vic's already. Me and Vic have already argued. We're gonna have to try to. We're gonna have to try to.
We were just said earlier on the this evening's festivities.
We're not gonna get into that. We already discussed the whole hosting thing.
We're not gonna go there.
Texas only graduates 3 contributors. OU has 8 fresh or contributors. OU's 8 fresh. I think they have a number 1. Yes, OU and Texas will have talent next year. Breaking news, ladies and
gentlemen. They'll be fine. Newsflash.
Do you think Heather Tarr is going to Auburn? No, I don't. I know why people are thinking that. It's been an interesting offseason for Washington, but no,
yes.
Every indication I've gotten that no, she's not going. But I understand why people are asking that, because you guys, there's been some, and I don't want to get into the portal stuff because I think it's insane that the transfer portal is open during the postseason. And this is not a softball issue. This is a college sports issue. Because college basketball was the same thing, where the portal is open during the NCAA tournament. And I think it's insane that we have this open during postseason. So you're forcing coaches while they're in the postseason, also worried about players that are in the portal. I think it's insane. Mm-hmm. I don't understand why you don't just wait till the World Series is over and just open the portal. But I just don't want to get into that because it drives me nuts. It's unbelievable. And again, it's not a softball issue. It's a college sports issue on that. But certainly Washington has had an interesting offseason. Victoria Haywood is now the head coach at Nevada. We touched on that. That's fascinating move. So there's some changes with a Washington year that clearly ended in a lot of frustration at the end of the year for the Huskies. So, yes. But I don't know. To answer the people's question, I do not think Heather Tarr will go to Auburn just based on a talk. I don't think anybody really knows right now who's going to Auburn. I think that's what's so fascinating about this. I mean, there's names out there, but there's not a strong consensus like there has been. Now, again, I expect that to pick up this week in Oklahoma City. And let's not forget, Ohio State's open. That might close before Auburn.
I think so, too.
Because I've heard they've got some interviews and, they're moving. Notre Dame now is open. With Deanna Gump
with Coach Gump just retiring.
Yeah, this is actually a pretty attractive 3 marquee programs here open during the World Series. So I expect a lot of chatter to pick up and rumor and innuendo this week in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, and of course, remember, and Eric, we always know there's always going to be that one job that suddenly opens out of nowhere that nobody saw.
On a related note, when are you going to Chicago again?
Let's just say I have not made plans as of yet for that.
You let us know because usually, yes. For those who don't know,
Eric. Can you give me for those who are new to our for those who are new
there's
to
a lot of you. Yeah, there's a lot of you.
Yeah, a lot of you for that, but thank you. Could you please explain to the folks why you are joking with me about when I'm going to be leaving to Chicago in the summertime, please?
Because the last 2 years that Victor has gone to Chicago, we've had coaches retire. Carol Hutchins literally retired as Victor landed in Chicago. We had to do a completely new show out of the blue, an emergency show. Last year was Hallison Habits. So
and you're saying there that if I fly to Chicago for a third straight summer to watch Athletes Unlimited,
you know what they say? One time is what's the old saying? Once is a
coincidence, twice is a trend, third is a pattern.
Thank you very much.
Oh boy.
That's all you got to say.
Okay.
So yeah,
we shall see. We shall see.
Is there anything else there, Vic, we should address from the audience? I want to make sure I don't want to leave anybody interesting questions. There's some of these I'm skipping because we've already addressed. So if you missed it,
some of them we're skipping because we're addressing. Some of them we're not skipping because obviously we're not going to address them on the air. But it's let's see. Yeah, Juan Blero, he agrees. 1,000% agree with that. No portal until the Women's College World Series is over. You should treat the portal like you do coaching and recruiting. Dead period, starting from, I say you start from once the postseason starts, once the field of 64 is selected that Monday, the portal is shut, and it only reopens until the day after the Women's College World Series. That's just my thoughts on it.
I know there's academic things about it, but please. Who we kidding? All right. Yeah. Well, look at this. We got a compliment here. What do we got here? We got kudos to Catbird and Elo. Think back just a couple of years. You guys are reaping the rewards of your hard work. Ain't that?
Appreciate you.
Amen to that. We've had a heck of a run. I've been, Oklahoma City, Tallahassee, Gainesville the last 3 weeks, but we got more stuff in store.
Yes.
Folks. And, man, we have so many viewers and listeners throughout. It's been fun. And Victor mentioned it. We're going to be busy now just because, we're going to Oklahoma City. We're going to do a lot of content. So we're going to keep it here on In the Circle. Final thoughts, Vic, before we wrap it up here.
We are down to our final 8 teams making it to Oklahoma City. I'm looking forward to seeing, will Oklahoma become the second ever college softball team to win 4 straight national championships? Oklahoma City did it the first time in the NAIA in the mid-90s. Whoa. So Oklahoma's trying to get a little history there.
They wouldn't even be the first Oklahoma team to do it? Wow.
No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't. And you won't get that information anywhere else. Other than right here in the circle.
Look at that stat boy, man. Tony Reale. You got nothing. You should replace Tony Reale as around the horn.
Well, let me put it to this way. I'll be more generous with the mute button for certain panelists from New York. Let's just say that.
Oh, no. Rob! Been watching you gems since the World Series 3 years ago. Let's keep fingers crossed for no fire alarms. Vic, you gonna have any fire alarms at your house? Folks, for those that don't know, there was a fire alarm that went off when Vic was at the World Series.
It was
while we were on the show. We were on was it 19? No, I think it was 21.
It was 21. It was 21. I remember this. It was 21. We had Christy Fox. I believe we got Christy Fox from UNLV on. And I just got back from my hotel after one of the games. And the freaking fire alarm went off.
That's correct. And I think you had to step away. You had to leave.
Yeah.
You've never heard the end of it. People keep bringing this up 3 years later.
You see, for those of you who are new to watching us, this is some of the inside humor that you get to partake and experience whenever we do In the Circle Live, especially when it's In the Circle Live at the dark. So
Look at this. Rob remembers everything. I think it was night before Champ Series, Game 1. Look at that.
Yes.
That's insane.
I have to go back to the archives, Rob, to confirm, but I'm pretty sure you're right on that.
Keyshawn Mays agrees with Victor. Timely hitting, good pitching, and defense. Bama has a chance. We'll find out. I can't wait, Vic. Wednesday. I want to hear it. You and I may have to make a little friendly wager.
Oh, really? A friendly wager?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. We'll find out. We're gonna find out.
Steve,
what?
Steve,
what? What? All right, that's okay. Steve. Don't. All right. On that. No, we don't. No, do not bring up wrestling. What? That might be the craziest post ever in the history of this show.
I mean, we were just talking about fire alarms a few minutes ago. So
apparently, we needed one at a wrestling show. Apparently, Steve is to say there.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, all right, should be a lot of fun, folks. World Series to get going Thursday. We're gonna get out. You guys are amazing. Because you have been the star of the show, all of you.
We love y'all,
and we've tried to give you all the comments here. We've gone nearly 2 hours, and Vic's like, yeah, and that's why we didn't book really many guests because we wanted you guys to be the guests on this particular special show. We're going to be on a lot throughout the next couple of weeks. Keep it on D1 Softball. It's the only place going to cover it wall-to-wall coverage. It's going to be incredible coverage, ins and outs, the X's and O's, whatever you like. We're going to have it on D1 Softball. We're going to have an incredible crew at Oklahoma City. Me and Vic will be back here in the house contributing as well on the content. Expect some late night shows like this. This was a good warm-up on that.
Get used to ITC at the dark. That's going to be the hashtag, folks. So get used to it because this is just a little dry run. And based on it,
Victor and I will not be distracted by the NBA Finals like we were last year.
Well, by the time the NBA Finals starts, by the time the NBA Finals of the Champ Series will probably be starting at the exact same time. Well, actually,
even better. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. So,
thanks to Shelly Carlin for joining us. Thanks to all of you that have chimed in with questions. This has been amazing, up to 2 hours. An amazing super regional that certainly will not be forgotten anytime soon. Congrats to all the teams that got in. All 8 should be exciting. It'll kick off Thursday with UCLA and Alabama, followed by Oklahoma and Duke. And then at the night session, Texas and Stanford. Holy bleep! Followed by Oklahoma State and Florida. Woo!
We eating good, family, on Thursday night.
That's a heck of a night session if I ever saw one. So
and my stress level is going to be at like 300 because you got those 2 games going on. You got the Panthers and the Rangers, Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals, which could be 2-2. Heaven forbid if the Panthers are down 3-1 and they're facing elimination. What my mindset's going to be, Lord help all of us.
I gotta address Steve B and what the heck he's talking about off the air. But anyway, thanks to everybody that tuned in, live shows, and as well as on the podcast feed. We will have podcasts during the World Series. Keep it coming, keep subscribing, keep giving the great feedbacks. We listen, and we'll try to get you some awesome guests throughout. We'll do that, and first with the crew at D1 Softball, the great crew that'll be at Oklahoma City. For Victor Anderson, I'm Eric Lopez. We hope you've enjoyed this In the Circle Live After Dark special edition.
Top podcasters out. Good night, Canada. Please don't set yourselves on fire.